My name is Jamie.
And my name's Adam.
Adam, as you know, part of the services that we offer is selling cars for clients. And one of the vehicles that we had very recently was a 2022 Chevrolet Corvette C8 LT1. And it was such a standout car that I think it merits, taking a deeper look in the context of, should someone buy a Corvette, a new Corvette?
Yeah, definitely. I gotta say, this is one of the best experience Autekka has had thus far with a car, I think. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that, but I honestly had a great time taking this thing out for a ride. And the one that we had, like you said, it was a 2022 LT1, and it was basically a base spec, right? The only thing it had on it was that metallic clear coat, the red mist, and the performance exhaust. I mean, everything else was pretty much straight out of the box.
As it comes to the factory. So the vehicle we had, it had a whopping 5,800 kilometers on it, so it hadn't driven very far.
Yep.
And in addition to that, it had only been on the road since March of 2022. And when we had it, it was August, September of 2022. And so the car hadn't been around very long. And as we're going to see later, I think part of the motivation for why the car was sold was the purchase price was lower than the selling price of the vehicle in the future.
Yep.
So why is the C8 such a big change from what Corvettes have been like in the past?
I mean, night and day difference, right? And first and foremost, what stands out? What stands out?
And so they came out with the Corvette as Ford was developing the Thunderbird, and that model was engine in the front, fiberglass body, two-seater.
Yeah.
And this is very different because it's still fiberglass, but the engine has been moved from typical Corvette territory to mid-engined.
Exactly, and what a difference that makes, huh? That recipe hasn't changed, like you said, for 7 generations. That recipe has a front engine, and all the torque going to the rear wheels. Now you got the engine kind of straddling, almost sitting, it just sits in front of the rear axle, so it really kind of squishes that car down, really gives you a feel for the road, and just changes the driving dynamic completely.
And so, what did you think of the presentation?
Listen, they did a really nice job. I mean, driving around Georgetown or anywhere around the GTAA, you've always got that one person that stops to say, "Hey man, nice Ferrari," because that's what it kind of looks like, right? It's so indicative of like all the lines. It just looks, it looks really good. They did a great job with the rims, the tire package, the way it sits. I mean, the lines on it are great.
So let's do it pro forma here. So
Yeah.
what's the good in terms of the way it looks outside and inside?
I think just like I said, it's kind of got that supercar appearance to it, right? It's super slick. It looks like it was really built in a wind tunnel. It just looks fast even when it's standing still.
And the bad?
And the bad, I've got a few of my own things. I mean, I wish they would refine some of the edges on the side of the vehicle. I wish it was all one color.
Slightly too angular?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but now I'm splitting hairs, right? At the end of the day, it looks really good, and man, did they ever get the job done.
Well, it's funny. So the only bad that I took away from the car was in terms of the interior. I thought that some of the buttons were a little fussy.
Oh, we're going interior?
Well, that was interior and exterior.
Gotcha.
But after spending some time with it, I actually came to the conclusion that the interior of the car was actually very well executed in terms of a usability perspective. And so those buttons took a while to get used to in terms of that sort of fighter cockpit appearance they're trying to get to. But when you did get there, I had to think, I guess we had it floating around for about 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
And
Awesome 2 weeks.
I didn't find it onerous to drive every single waking moment that I could.
No, you're right. And the weather that we had sure added to the whole experience too, right? But just on the note of the interior, if we're going there, the only thing that was really bugging me was that damn top of the
top of the center console near your elbow.
Yeah, so the release button on the side of it was compromised in some way, shape, or form. So it's automatically weighted to kind of pop open. So once that latch lets go, that thing has doesn't do anything but stay open. So it's just kind of cumbersome and in the way. I mean, you know, of all the things, again, I'm nitpicking, but I'm sure Chevrolet will get their act together on that one and just make it more robust.
I note that the latch was actually broken because someone had already hit it with their elbow enough to
it's
actually
just
break the
right
latch.
there, right?
It's just poorly designed.
Yeah, totally.
And so using the same structure, the driving, that includes handling and, you know, the feel of the engine and just the general demeanor of the car. You know, what was the good?
Look, when you threw me the keys first, like right out of the gates, and when I got in it, it was like getting into a Corvette. It was there's, you know, you still have that nostalgic feel. You're getting in something special, right? And then when you turn the engine on and you actually put it in drive and start going, I mean, it really just resonates from the top of your head down to your tips of your toes. It is so good. It sounds good. It feels good. It makes you feel like you can drive better than you can probably drive. And just the shifting on it is so precise, so clean. You know, it's really something that I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit, but it's really something that belongs in a car that's well into the six-figure range.
Yeah, no, I loved it too, and particularly the fact that when the T-roof was off, in the color that we got, everything really came together nicely. In fact, color on this car is quite sensitive.
Yeah. Agreed.
The two negatives was, one, no manual transmission, and two, the engine, unlike previous Corvettes, you know, that's not true. So previous Corvettes did like to rev, but they had a lot of, you know, and this car does too, a lot of torque down low. It just felt that the red line could have been moved up another couple of thousand or 1,500 RPMs, and that would have matched very well to a manual transmission. You know, however, having said that, I still didn't find that this particular transmission engine setup in any way impeded my fondness for the vehicle. I really came away deeply impressed.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think I said it, one of the first things I said in the video that we shot when we were actually in the vehicle was it would be a lot more fun if it was in manual, but you know, I got over that pretty quick too. That thing was just incredible to drive.
And so livability. So the car is intended to be, you know, like Corvettes of old, you know, GM's performance vehicle, like the performance vehicle. It is the showcase of General Motors' best technology in a car on the road today.
Hands down.
And so, did it make it? Did it pass? Like, you know, did you come away thinking that if that was the intent of GM, was to make a car that competed with the best of the best, you know, did it succeed?
Yeah, hands down. It took it to the next level. They did such a great job in just making sure that livability was baked into the performance of this vehicle. I mean, what you can't do with it, the only thing it doesn't have is 2 extra seats in the back.
I was totally going to go there too.
Right?
It's like, you know,
But that's the only thing that this car doesn't have.
you know, so now if I'm out to dinner with someone else and you decide to have a couple of drinks and you get the phone in driver to come and get you, someone's taking a taxi.
Totally. And you know what? Sorry, but I'm driving it. For
Yeah.
sure. It ain't me taking a taxi, that's for sure. No, this thing, like, soup to nuts, this thing is just so well put together. You can drive it every day. I mean, you know, the next one that's coming out is all-wheel drive. You can drive it around in the winter. Like, come on.
Well, and I was going to say, like, in terms of a highlight, yeah, you could drive this thing in the winter, I think, totally. Except big wheels.
Yeah.
And hard to park. But the kudos to GM. I thought that the infotainment system, in terms of its execution and how well it functioned, actually really was, you know, it was fuss-free.
Yeah.
It worked very well.
Yeah.
The integration with the phone was very clean.
Yeah, agreed.
You know, the controls and the access to the controls was actually fairly intuitive. And I find more and more this is an area that domestic manufacturers really do dominate the field. You know, when you get into an Audi or a Porsche and you start fooling around with some of the infotainment systems that they offer, particularly with these third-party apps that you have to download to interact with, like an Audi stereo.
Kick in the ass. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just much better.
Slick. The sound quality that comes out of this thing is perfect, even with the roof off. You can hear the phone. You can hear the person that
And
you're
this
talking
is the
to.
introductory stereo.
Right, exactly. It's their bargain basement stereo, if I can put it that way, and it still works really well. Although, you know what? I don't care if it's in the off position too, because the sound coming out of the back end is just sweet.
Yeah, no, I found myself hitting that gas pedal for no reason.
Right. Exactly.
But that's, so bargain basement pricing and
Yeah.
stereo is a great segue point, because now what I want to really look at is sort of the Autekka view. So as I said, this is a vehicle that we had to sell, which we didn't take very long. But one of the things that really stands out is that GM has these vehicles priced at a number that is here versus what we sold it for. And so the vehicle that, as we said, that we had, and I fast forwarded it to 2023 pricing.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Inclusive of the performance exhaust and the extra cost for the special paint, which I thought worked well. Pre-tax, it was $81,767 plus applicable taxes, which brings us to a whopping $92,396.71. And in fact, the car that we were driving new was cheaper because their prices have gone up incrementally since the time that car was sold.
Yeah.
That's a brand new one, 2023 now with the same equipment. We sold the used 2022 for $116,000 with 5,800 kilometers on it and 6 or 7 months under the belt.
Yeah, which is still a bargain in my opinion.
Yeah, but isn't that crazy? So people are going out and buying Corvettes and turning around, and even inclusive of like the tax component of the 13%, they're able to make money reselling them used.
It's crazy. Turning them into real estate, Jimmy.
Yeah, well, so this is about the only reasonable car that still makes Ontario real estate look inflated.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
And so that brings us to where this thing sits in the marketplace. And so there's 3 vehicles that really kind of stand out here. I don't know if you want to kind of walk us through them.
Yeah, for sure. So we looked at the Porsche 718 Cayman and Boxster, and the 911 Carrera, just to kind of give us a base point as to like a real good comparison of an apples to apples kind of view. The McLaren was the McLaren GT.
Well, yeah, we passed the McLaren in the video
on
the other way.
Yeah.
So the GT is now the closest kind of mid-engine sports car, and frankly, I probably should have looked more. Maybe Ferrari's got something that's kind of close to me.
But
if there really is there's no point in having McLaren there.
For sure.
The 2 Porsches are the only real.
Let's go with the Porsches. And when it comes down to it, you're looking at the 911 Carrera. You're looking at 79 horsepower. The Boxster is sitting at 300 horsepower. And let's go over the numbers really quickly when it comes down to it. We're looking at 96,000 Canadian. That's net of taxes, right?
So the Boxster pre-tax so to get the Boxster with the same equipment that the Corvette came with.
Right.
So you couldn't actually get a fully based Boxster. You actually had to include stuff. The Boxster ended up coming in at effectively $99,600 pre-tax. Which took us to $112,600 plus or minus ballpark, taxes included. And the
Carrera?
And the Carrera, we didn't have to add quite as much equipment to get us to the same zone of equipment. However, we still ended up at the $143,500 pre-tax zone, and then you add taxes to that, and it's $161,600, and that doesn't include the new luxury tax. So in Ontario, there's a new, I guess it's a federal luxury tax of 10% or somewhere thereabouts for cars that are over $100,000.
Right.
And so, the reality is that pushes the 911 into the territory where it's almost twice as expensive as a Corvette. The Boxster, in a sense, is the closest in terms of at least mid-engine, and at least it does have Corvette's got a removable top. The Carrera does not.
Right. Yeah.
So the Boxster was almost the closest.
Yeah.
The Corvette has the performance that far exceeds the regular 911.
Definitely.
In every way.
Well, 495 horsepower in the Corvette.
Well, and
300 compared to the 300 that are in the Boxster.
The new 8-cylinder engine is just a lovely, lovely power plant to be in front of.
Yeah.
It's in the right spot.
Yeah.
I think it even gets better fuel economy than a 911. Don't quote me on that one.
Porsche package.
Well, and
comparatively.
And for clarity, taxes included.
Yep.
The Boxster is almost exactly $20,000 more expensive than a Corvette. You know, to achieve the same parameters that we see in the vehicle, and one has to start to wonder, you know, about the inflation that's taking place with car pricing. And so, you know, if we look at the Corvette sort of, you know, moving forward, what we did is we looked at the Corvette over a 5-year hold, because most of the people that we deal with on these type of cars, 5 years is typically where they land.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really exceed more than 8,000 kilometers a year because it's typically a summer car.
Yep.
And they're doing mostly 80% city driving, or effectively in and around the greater Toronto area, and the balance would be highway driving, you know, so it should be 70-20, 80-20, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the equation that we use is acquisition cost plus projected maintenance and repairs, net of future value, divided over the term. That gives us our average monthly cost in this case. And so, looking at if this persists the way Corvettes typically function in the market at the moment, the first year the vehicle shouldn't depreciate at all, because the trend that we're seeing right now as a result of COVID is that they're worth more used than they sell for. However, I decided that going with a flat number was probably more realistic. But even at 5 years, I still have this vehicle being worth pre-tax $61,325, with what would be, you know, effectively 56,000 kilometers thereabouts on it, which puts us, inclusive of maintenance and repairs, at an average tax included cost to the owner of about $790 per month, and the total cost of the 5 years to the owner being about $47,981. And so, bringing this back to something like a Porsche Boxster, and the reason why I wanted to discuss this, there's two things that really stand out here.
Mm-hmm.
One, this Corvette, as a percentage of its original, you know, cost, it's going to hold its value much better than the Boxster. And in fact, 5 years from now, the Corvette, the 2023 LT1, is going to be worth more just on a straight parallel basis than a Boxster would be. So the Boxster is going to have a much fiercer depreciation curve than what we're experiencing here, but maintenance and repairs and time in shop. So this is something that you and I discussed when we had the car.
You're getting supercar performance, but you don't have the price tag when it comes down to the maintenance side of things for the Corvette. You pay less.
Well, and much better dealer coverage.
That too. You know, so the accessibility you mean.
If you were to drive a few hundred kilometers outside of the greater Toronto area, there is no Porsche dealership that you can go to. If there's any real problem that happens with a Corvette, there's GM dealerships everywhere.
Totally.
And they may not be, you know, fully certified for everything to do with a Corvette, but they will have access and support that in a pinch, any real GM dealer can sort of interact with a Corvette on some level.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, and so it used to be that a Corvette under-delivered on presence versus some of these other vehicles, but it had the raw performance. I think the C8, it's got the finesse now that was lacking in previous Corvettes, but more than that, and more importantly, I mean, come on, a red Porsche Boxster or a red Corvette LT1 with the T-top out.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't probably drive a Boxster. You know, so we're already at a 911, and the only compelling factor for the 911 here is really those two extra seats. Other than that, I think the Corvette, from a driving perspective, a presence perspective, the one that we had was a car that I would buy apples to apples before I'd buy a Porsche. Probably not even including just the huge price disparity.
Yeah, hands down, man. So, final word. What's your take on it? Where are you going? I think I already know.
It's a huge win for GM, this car.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm of the same opinion. And when you look at the numbers, when you look at the performance, you look at what you can do with this thing, and just the wow factor that you get. You know, it just makes you feel like a race car driver, and you look like a celebrity driving this thing, right? It just looks so good. The worst thing that you have to worry about when it comes down to the wear and tear on that vehicle is the rear 305s going, because you're gonna do a bunch of smoke shows with that car, I guarantee you, whenever you can.
Although we didn't do it
We
with
did
the
not.
car that we had, of course not. We drove it responsibly and never exceeded the speed limit.
Absolutely not. We are 100% safety here, but if one wanted to, they sure as heck can take it out. And
You're talking anarchy.
I would love to take that thing on the track, like tomorrow. Anyway, I'm of the same opinion. That's where I stand. Corvette all the way, and I can't wait until I can afford a Z06.
So you should phone us so that we can get you a Corvette brand new.
Give us a shout, Autekka.com or support@autekka.com. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this video from Autekka.
We deal in new and used cars, so for further information, please reach out to us.
Support@autekka.com. Looking forward to hearing from you.